Welcome to the Fearless Asian Man Show, where we empower Asian men to become strong men who create the relationships and lifestyle they desire. Now, let's get this show started.
It's a lot easier to just surround yourself with the right people that actually care about you. And tying to the points, Will, that you mentioned earlier, when you are surrounded by people that actually care for you, like you, and love you, that is immensely healing. I got to say, for me, what helped heal my shame a lot is by having really good friends around me that were there for me when I was basically an absolute emotional shit show. Because I got to tell you, man, there's nothing more visceral and more powerful than another person actually caring for you. And yes, positive affirmations and all that stuff is very helpful. But when you combine that with the right relationships, that's going to really supercharge, your identity and your sense of self. So with that, go ahead.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's incredibly important. And, even on the small things, like the technical things, having the right people can really help you. When you have male and female platonic friends, they can identify things that you're doing socially that you aren't aware of. Like maybe your hair sticks out at the end and it just looks really weird, or you have like this weird, creepy way of talking that you don't notice. When you have, socially adept friends who can see things from different perspectives, they can point that out and you can get it fixed quickly.
Absolutely. That kind of reminds me, in college, I used to have very poor social intuition. I actually started from zero, in the sense of I was so socially stunted. I had to read books on how to read body language and really how to act normally. And a lot of it actually wasn't because I had Asperger's or any of that. I'm not trying to knock anyone that does, but it's more just I was very socially stunted. I was too in my head, too insecure to the point that everything came out weird. And I used to have friends in college where they're like, dude, man, that thing you said to a girl, that was very pick-up-y. It was actually very off-putting, and that girl told me. And of course, it stung in the moment. But nowadays, people are like, oh my God, Jeremy, you read people so well. And a lot of it comes from the fact that I had people reflecting back to me how I was appearing to people. And it's really immensely helpful to have that, because I like to say this: it is very rare in life for someone to give you the God honest truth, to be real with you and not try to mince words. I've always grown when people were able to tell me things really honestly. And of course it hurts in the moment, but I don't think a lot of guys have that. And that's why with this resource and interviewing, I want to dive into the real shit, because if this became another pickup podcast, I think a lot of guys would just get hung up on the tactics, but it wouldn't really solve their real core emotional issues. And I absolutely want that to hold them back.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think, a lot of people are strung up on the tactics. They're looking for some secret or quick hack. And when that doesn't work, they have to face the truth, which is that, it's probably some deeper psychological thing that, a good therapist could help you fix, and you'll be on your way.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to say, don't knock therapy, guys. I've been to multiple therapists, and I will say that proudly, because honestly, I was just so tired of trying to figure that shit out myself. I mean, I knew all the theory, but I'm like, God damn it. It's not working right. I'm always thinking about it and trying to fix it, and I'm not feeling differently. The right therapist will be immensely helpful in terms of guiding you through your own psyche. And to kind of tie to that point, I think this reminds me of how a lot of Asian guys, actually, one thing I've noticed with them, the reason why they struggle in life, namely love and business or career, is because they have something what we call a nice guy syndrome. And Will, can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on this in terms of what is nice guy syndrome, how does it show up, and how to get over it?
Yeah, so the term nice guy syndrome was coined by Dr. Robert Glover to describe a rapidly growing segment of American and European and now Asian population that are nice guys. And, the first reaction to this that's common is that, well, isn't it good to be nice? What's wrong with being nice? Well, you probably already know, nice guys often have tons of frustration, resentment, and sometimes fights with their romantic partner. or they can't even get dates. And they're really frustrated because they're told, I'm such a nice guy, and you want to date this girl, and they say, well, I don't want to date you, but you're a nice guy. Someone else will find you, and that never happens. And then there's also these volcanic eruptions where they all of a sudden feel like a victim because they've been putting in all this work to please others, and they're doing all this nice stuff in expectation that they'll get something back, when in reality, they're not actually even being nice, because they're not doing it selflessly, and it's causing a lot of expectations that aren't actually, signed or, clear on both sides, and, a lot of frustration for these men.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times these guys got to realize that they're not being nice by being manipulative. They're giving, as you said, gifts with strings attached, because they're hoping that, whether or not they realize that, they hope that by giving, the people will respond in the way that they want them to respond. It's like guys are trying to be nice to girls to try to have sex with them, and then they get angry when the girl like goes with a douchebag or someone else, and they're like, fuck you, blah, 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 right? And I think a lot of guys got to understand that. To tie to your earlier points, Will, I guess let me ask this question for you. How is being a nice guy, how is it tied to shame and self-hatred and low self-esteem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the nice guy syndrome is, at its core, it's a shame and anxiety issue. So all the different aspects of it, when you drill down to it, they have shame because they were brought up usually as Christians, but it could be any religion, where they have a lot of sexual shame around anything romantic. I mean, as a quick test, if you think back to your first sexual experience, was that open and honest, and people you shared that with other people, or was it hidden and dark and secretive? For most nice guys, it was the latter. And so there's definitely a lot of sexual shame involved with the nice guy syndrome that they have to work through, because if you have to realize that it's okay to do these things, and it's not a bad thing, despite what your priest or your mother told you.
Boom. Stop. I got a serious question for you guys. Do you like free shit? Because I love free shit. Anyways, what I'm trying to get to is this. I recently revamped the free guides page on my website. For those of you who are aware of that page, I'm giving out free guides on helping Asian men upgrade their love lives. And the thing that I made really cool, in my opinion, about this free guides page is that I made it more customized in terms of giving you a guide that will help you with your love life. A lot of times, a lot of guides are just kind of like, hey, sign up and just get your free shit. But it may not be very customized towards your problem that you're facing. So go ahead and go over to the show notes, click the link, kind of enter in your details, and see what guide you get. It's a lot more customized for what problem you're facing in your love life, and I'm sure it'll be a lot more helpful instead of just giving you random ass advice that you just randomly sign up for. Check it out. I hope you like it.
That's a huge part of that needs to be worked through. And I'm working through this myself. I recently joined a anxiety support group, and my first action step from the book No More Mr. Nice Guy was to reveal something I was sexually ashamed about. And it was tough, and I held back, and I didn't want to say it, but I eventually revealed to that group that I sometimes watch porn. And that is one great way of releasing that shame, is to go to safe people. Don't go to someone that's gonna make fun of you first. Go to people that are trustworthy. For me, it was that support group with people that were only showed up in it, and I knew it was more safe, and they wouldn't go crazy on me. So that's a huge part of it. And then anxiety is another huge issue with that, because you have these nice guys have these ideas that they want to be that if they do all the right things, that the world's going to be a fair, perfect place. And that's not the case. And then they also believe that if they do all this stuff and without even having to say it or establish it, a girl or another person has to do all this for you in return. And that's not true as either. So most people, especially Asians, Asian American men, they struggle with the nice guy syndrome because it's how they've been brought up to be a people pleaser from their immigrant parents. And when you tie that all together, it's really a huge source of the frustration they experience and the obstacles that they face.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like the whole we are raised to be pleasers. If you think about it, like Asian culture is very shame based. It's very based on you don't live your life, you live it for your family in a sense. You don't bring dishonor to your family. And for me, I can say what you said was spot on with the sexual shame. Even for me here and there, like I have to work through it. It's not because I'm like scared of expressing sexuality to women, because obviously I am a dating relationship coach, but it actually has shown up in my relationship with my girlfriend of 2 years. And it's just so weird because it's just like, what the fuck? I thought I was over it, but it still rears its head. And I want to say there are levels to shame, and it's okay to continually work on it, because self-development in a sense is like an onion. You have to peel away the layers. And I do want to say, if you grew up Christian and Asian American, I understand your pain, because that's the way I grew up. My mom actually, there's a period of time where I was really deep into pickup, and I worked at a pickup company. My very Christian, conservative, anxiety-prone mother found out, and she basically flew into a rage. I wasn't making enough money to move out at the time, and that was probably one of the worst 9 months of my life, because it was like full of anger, shame, and like she would cry because she thought I was going to hell. And then she would say things like, I hope you don't get AIDS. And the reason why I'm saying all of this is not to say like my mom's a bitch, because I do love her, but it's to really say that when you're living under the shadow of your parents, growing up in a very shame-based culture, that stuff will fuck with you unless you decide to not let it fuck with you. And I want to really encourage the Asian guys, like if you need to see a therapist, go to a 12-step group, or go to I think there are groups on like not becoming a nice guy anymore, or like retaking your masculinity in terms of beating nice guy syndrome. I recommend you go and do that, because to echo what you said, Will, there is a lot of power in stating the thing that you are ashamed of to a group of guys, and a safe group of guys. I'm not saying go on social media and blast that shit out to your family, your friends that may see you in one way. I would say go to a safe group, because when you're able to do that, a lot of that shame lifts. Because when you have someone actually love you and accept you despite what you think is shameful, you get a very, again, visceral experience of being accepted for who you are. And I would really recommend it, because I've done the same thing. I've gone to men's development conferences, and they made us do, I don't want to say slightly weird shit, but for some guys, they might feel uncomfortable. Some examples included like standing close to a dude and taking one step closer. And for a lot of guys, this was the exercise in holding tension. And another one was saying, okay, with the same guy, tell them one thing you don't want anyone to know about you. And this is where, a lot of guys had to really get real. But I will say, from my own experiences and the experiences of other guys, it is immensely healing. Because if you don't take care of the shame, it will continually be this heavy weight on your shoulders. Everything you will be doing will be a way to escape the feeling of that burden of shame. And for Asian guys out there, I don't want you to suffer from that, because it is a very, very exhausting way to live.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Will, we've covered quite a bit, and we covered a lot of the real shit a lot of Asian guys face. And I know you recommended a lot of different resources throughout the course of this podcast. You mentioned The Tao of Happiness, No More Mr. Nice Guy. I think you also mentioned Jack Donovan's book, The Way of Men. But besides those books, are we missing any other resources you think would be crucial for helping Asian guys become shameless as well as happy individuals?
Yeah, so those books and those resources mentioned are very valuable, but you don't want to stay in the state of just being all alone on your own and trying to use logic or trying to learn all this stuff on your own, because that's usually not going to work. You have all these emotional and cognitive biases that are um, you have to work through. And yes, you'll get pretty far if you try and do it all alone, but you might not get as far as you eventually want to, like your dream life. So I definitely recommend what you mentioned earlier, which is you know, find other people, and this should be through at least, you know, two different networks. One being something that's a bit more professional with expertise behind it, like a therapist, a 12-step group. As mentioned, I attended a men's anxiety group, which is much more affordable than your personal therapist. So that's another option. And then, other than the professional networking aspect, there's also just, you know, personal. Make some friends. For me, I tried CrossFit, but there's hundreds of different other activities out there. There's salsa class. There's recreational volleyball. There's all sorts of things out there that you can try to actually establish strong social relationships, friends with other people. I remember when, you know, there are times when in high school that were tough for me because I didn't have many friends, and, you know, there's a big event and I was out alone, and I saw everyone else and they were talking with people that they knew. So this is something that you really have to kind of work a bit to develop, but you know, realize that there are good people out there who are friendly and will talk to you and will befriend you if you are willing to reach out and make that friendship. Perhaps you lived in a really crappy town with crappy parents, and that town was you know, against you for whatever reason. But realize that there's billions of people in this world, and maybe if you move to a city or a place that's more welcoming, all your perceptions and beliefs about how people are mean to you may be disproven. So really check that out. You know, there's knowledge only is useful if you apply that knowledge.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I think a lot of guys, they get stuck in their heads and they keep reading and reading and reading and reading, and they keep hopping from group to group to group, to coach to coach to coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why I keep saying that is because I was supremely guilty of that too. I mean, I was always reading and reading more books before actually doing anything. And to kind of tie to my next point, Will, what is the biggest lesson or takeaway you would like to give to our audience members? Because obviously we covered a lot of really good stuff, a lot of the real issues a lot of Asian men face. But if there's one lesson or one takeaway you would like to give to them, what would it be?
Yeah, first of all, thank you again for having me. I think this is fantastic. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you.
The one takeaway that I think, you know, you should part with is to really look into your obstacles with your psychology. This could be shame, anxiety, or low self-esteem, and really work on fixing that professionally and / or through relationships, good, healthy, stable relationships. That will get you much farther than all the tactics or hacks out there on, you know, the pickup lines or those tactics that give you details, because those, you'll try them out. You could probably try them out within a couple of seconds. Some of them are so simple that you can try them out and they won't work, and you'll be confused or you'll be frustrated, and you'll keep trying tactics and they still won't work. So if you really focus on the psychology and the mental aspect of it, I think in the long run, you'll do so much better. You will achieve the happiness, the health, the wealth that you're going for.
I agree with that. Absolutely. For me, to quickly recap, I think the only way I got good with women, and it's all relative, but the way I started actually dating more quality women, better relationships with women, is when I actually went to therapists and coaches, not just dating coaches, but coaches that focus on fixing the shame, the anxiety, and all that stuff. And it's really like, it really is great how you can live life from a different state of mind where you're happier and less anxiety prone. It truly is amazing. And I think for all the Asian guys listening, definitely listen to Will on that, because there's no shame in asking for help. I hope this episode was helpful for you all. please subscribe to this podcast, rate it, and share it with a fellow Asian brother. All this content is available on my YouTube channel and website. Links to both are in the show notes. And until next time.